I found a new ship combat trick that, well, let's just say is quite something. In my previous video about my shipboarding trick, some people complained that it takes too long. So this is a massively improved version of that. For those who didn't watch it, basically I showed how to board multiple ships in the same fight. Something Bethesda said you couldn't do. To do this, you'll need EM weapons. These are the ones I have, but you probably have access to better ones. And you'll need the target locking skill and the piloting skill. The EM weapon skill is also very useful for this. First, I want to point out in that video, I mentioned you had to fly about 6 kilometers for the enemy markers to disappear before you can dock and board. That turns out to be false. You don't have to fly at all. Here, for example, I'm in the Crick system. There are 5 Crimson ships around me, although there are usually 6, and they're all disabled. If I leave my seat and then sit back down and target lock a ship, I get the option to dock, regardless of whether I'm currently being attacked by another ship. And then once I'm done boarding and return to my ship, I can actually lock onto the next stationary ship and dock it regardless of whether or not I'm currently being attacked or if their engines have power. Essentially, I can chain dock ships. Now here's the interesting part. If there are ships flying around while you board, if you go back into your own ship, all non-stationary ships may disappear. And this is due to the fact that once you've docked, hostile ships will stop attacking and just fly away. If you take too long, they'll just vanish. So if you want to take all of them, you have to disable every moving ship every time you're done boarding, depending on how fast they are. Unless you're doing a bounty. For bounties, the ships will stick around, but this is where the trick comes into play. Because it turns out you don't have to disable all the ships to dock at all. In fact, you only have to disable the bounty. Then leave your seat and sit back down, lock onto the ship, and you can dock even with their friends attacking and flying around you. That way, when you board and kill the bounty, you don't have to deal with their friends because you can just leave afterwards. The downsides being that you'll get less XP and loot. Although loot-wise, that's not something I'm terribly worried about. But of course, if you're feeling extra greedy, you can rape and pillage their friends as well. Okay, maybe not rape. So in a way, you can pick and choose which ships you want to loot. Only want to loot and steal the big ones? Then let the small ones fly around, and vice versa. As I mentioned in the previous video, if you want to steal all the ships, you have to at least make the second last ship you're boarding your home ship first, so that your previous ship won't start blasting everyone. Although it will start fighting the last enemy, so you have limited time to dock with your ship amongst all the clutter before the enemy is destroyed. Unfortunately, this combat trick doesn't work for piracy. You can't do this to innocent or neutral ships without everyone hunting you down like your ex-wives when you win the lottery. I tried to rob a couple storm riders, and it turns out once you've docked, boarded, massacred the crew, and pillaged their loot, the other storm rider just disappears. You don't even see it fly away, it just despawns entirely. And I know it despawns because I boarded the ship for 1 second, gone back into my ship, and it's just gone. So if you wanna fuck over Galbank, sadly you gotta rob them one at a time. I don't know if this also applies to Crimson Fleet ships after you join them. Let me know in the comments below whether or not it does. But when it comes to fighting pirates and Varun crazies, this could actually be a viable tactic. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe and ring that bell. Good news for people who still love Starfield for some reason, it is officially an award winner, winning Most Innovative Game of the Steam Awards. And honestly, I was flabbergasted, and so was everyone else. But when I looked at the finalists, I gotta admit, it's a pretty weak field. 2 of the games I've never heard of. The other 2 I haven't played, but don't see how it would be that innovative at first glance. I've never participated or voted in the Steam Awards, but to be honest, if I was forced to, gun to head, I'd probably vote Starfield because it's the only one I played out of the list. But it wouldn't be my first or even second choice. Speaking of Storm Riders, I believe they're the most valuable ships you can rob in Starfield. And if you want to know the best way to rob them with virtually no consequences and what's inside them, then I highly recommend you watch this video right here.